Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started now. It's exactly 10 a.m. this beautiful Friday, and thank you so much for joining us for this session. This webinar is on succession planning strategies for business continuity. It is organized and hosted by Kenya Bankers Association, KBA, under the Inuka SME program. For those of you who may not know, the Inuka SME program is sponsored by KBA to help MSMEs in Kenya to build capacity and empower themselves. My name is Susan Ndungu, Head of Portfolio Monitoring, Business Banking at NCBA Bank, and I will be your host or your moderator today. As the session starts, please note that it's being recorded and will be made available to the participants. Also post your questions or comments on the chat box. We will answer them at the end of the presentation on the Q&A session. Ensure to also mute your mic. As the old saying states, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. As you might be aware, the sole purpose of succession planning is to ensure that your business continues to thrive with little to no disruption should you or a key member of your team leaves. After all, you're unable to control or anticipate illness, a disaster, or a pandemic that might render your key personnel incapacitated to perform their duties. It is therefore vital to set up strategies for succession to ensure business continuity. Indeed, today we are glad to have a seasoned business owner who has weathered all kinds of storms. She will give her insights on the right succession strategies to employ to ensure your business is there for the long term. Our speaker today is Patricia Okelo, the co-founder of Kayana Creative. Kayana Creative is a female-owned business accelerator that opened its doors to a community of like-minded female entrepreneurs, creating an enabling environment to move their business from ideation to launch and then to scale. Currently, Kayana has impacted over 480 women-led SMEs, offering support such as market linkages, legal processing, formalization of processes, packaging, and branding. Patricia is passionate about entrepreneurship and empowering women. She is well-versed with knowledge on how to support budding entrepreneurs. She is the co-author of a candid handbook for women doing business in Kenya, primarily to encourage women to venture into entrepreneurship. She is the founder of Candid Conversations, Circles for Women in Business. This is a community of female entrepreneurs who believe in the principle of abundance. It's a space where knowledge is shared through candid conversations held through curated networking events. They hold a monthly mentorship and coaching sessions for 100 women covering a variety of topics, including grit, finance, technology, branding, and even leadership. Patricia is also the founder of Willard Productions Limited, founded in the year 2000, primarily to offer professional design services for Kenyan business organizations. The desire to be flexible, travel, and explore creativity was the main driving force behind going into business. Willard Productions has since grown from a small design shop to a business offering below-the-line advertising services as well as branding solutions for various organizations, including NGOs such as Oxfam, Pathfinder International, corporates such as Google, Oracle, Huawei. In addition to this, in 2012, she set up a professional events company that is Conferencing in a Box that offers creative, experiential marketing events as a natural offshoot of Willard Productions. Conferencing in a Box has been successful in creating deeper interactions with their shared clients. Patricia is also a recipient of Enterprising Women Award 2014 in Florida, USA. This is an iconic woman. Patricia is married to Joseph Okelo. They have 3 children, Kaya, Ayana, and Zahari. So she wears many hats. And now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Patricia Okelo. Patricia, karibu.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that introduction. And good morning, everybody. As Susan has mentioned, of course, my name is Patricia, and I'm truly honored to have been asked to speak today on this forum. Thank you, Nuru and Rosalind, for the work you do in supporting small businesses and empowering the entire ecosystem. Thank you, Susan, for the introduction. We have not met, but we at Kayana appreciate the support that NCBA has given us. Last year, NCBA graciously supported publications, and this year, the Women in Retail series 2nd season that highlights women-run retail businesses and was supported by NCBA. Some of the stories and the videos are on NCBA's website and media handles, while the entire series is available on our Kayana YouTube channel. So karibuni, everybody. I was told today I'm speaking to small and micro businesses, and this is something that I'm passionate about. And this is an area that, as Susan has said, I have had 20 years experience, starting in my bedroom, actually, with Willard Productions, and eventually opening 2 offices and hiring a team of staff. So this micro entrepreneurial journey for me is very, very personal, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. Today, I was excited. Actually, last night, I woke up to the news of an entrepreneur known as Sarah Blakely. If any of you know who Sarah Blakely is, you can let us know in the chat. Sarah Blakely.
Myself.
Hello.
It's okay.
Maybe Beatrice, you want to mute? Thank you. So Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. And Spanx, for us ladies, we're very familiar with Spanx because many of us own a piece of that clothing. One of the reasons why I love this Sarah Blakely story, it's an amplified version of a small business story. She had been employed selling fax machines, and that was really had the entrepreneurial bug in her. And when looking for a business, she identified a product and invested in this product from ideation to complete development. So I really love the story, and I would really encourage you guys to Google. Anyway, yesterday, Sarah Blakely sold her majority stake in her business for $1.6 billion, which is really huge for us who have been watching the whole journey of her business and having held on to her stocks for very long. I don't think this would have happened if Sarah had not thought about succession. And as you can see, succession doesn't always mean only people who are leaving the business through death, but there's no way an investor can buy your business if you're not putting in systems or structures in order for it to be purchased. So this is not just about running and moving it to the next generation. It could also be the next generation of owners of your business. So this is just a little bit of why I think even for micro SMEs, succession planning is extremely important. So I'm going to just read through my notes, but you can feel free to make any comments in the chat. It'll take about maybe around 15 minutes. I'll try and read it as slowly as possible. But if I'm also moving too fast, just alert Susan so that she can slow me down, right? So karibuni, and let's hopefully it'll be an interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A, which will happen after. So as I said, I consider myself a successful small business owner. And success as a small business can be defined in many ways. How much do you make as a business? How many full-time employees do you have? Are you a market leader in your niche area? And how many years have you been in operation? For me, I consider myself successful mainly because I have managed to keep the lights on through a pandemic. That's a big deal for a small business owner. but also because I started my branding business from the bedroom 21 years ago when I had no children and I was the only employee. Running a business and raising a family is an interesting journey for the ladies who are in the house. And many sacrifices are made along the way, which includes, for me, I personally turned down a full Reuters scholarship in order to move to Mombasa to be with my husband where he was based at the time and start the business. Over the years, I had employees, and at one point, at my highest, I had 22 members of staff. I started 2 more businesses, one that will be 10 years in the 2000 and, well, next year, and another just 3 years old, which is Kayana. As has been said, I'm a mother of 3 children, and as I said, there are very many sacrifices that we've made along the way, and keeping my businesses small was a very, very deliberate choice. One of the driving factors that led me to writing a candid handbook for women doing business in Kenya was to inspire other women to do the same. That is to start a business of their own in a field of their expertise and contribute to our country's economy by providing meaningful work to Kenyans. Entrepreneurship is not to be romanticized, though. It is really tough, and it is not for the faint-hearted. I'll give you an example. On the day I was set to be admitted with my first child, I was delivering marketing material to my client on the way to hospital. At that time, I was the only sole employee in my business. Then when I had my second child, I was talking on calls as soon as I had been wheeled out of the theater, ensuring that an order would make the client's deadline. At the time, I only had 4 employees. And later with my third child, I took a whole year off my business. I had 2 businesses by then, and one was 15 years old, and that was the same year that I published the Candid Handbook. So just for the record, I am no expert in succession. And to be honest, when I saw the title, I almost called Rosalind to change it. However, what I'd like to share today is my personal experience of running and growing my business that has helped me do multiple things. And what I hope to do in the future is to ensure that it is there for posterity. I will also draw a lot from observing my life partner and some of the strategies I have seen his family deploy in their business that I can contribute towards developing a succession strategy for my own. So without much ado, let's dive in. It's always good to start from the point of defining the subject of discussion. In my search for a definition for succession planning, I came across this one. Succession planning is a process that ensures your company is prepared for the future. With this definition, then, it makes sense that you must have a plan in place to ensure. From my experience with my first business, where I bootstrapped for many years, I hardly forecasted growth. Instead, I moved from one customer to the next, and our growth was driven by a growing customer base, and in many ways, we went where our customers went. From this definition, we can agree that all businesses, small or big, need to prepare for the future if their intention is to be there for generations. I would like to share a few statistics I came across around small businesses, and these are not Kenyan, but I think it's worth sharing. In 2020, there were 3.7 million small businesses in the United States, and we know United States is the economy is really driven by mom and pop shops, so really small businesses. These small businesses accounted for 99% of the businesses in the US. However, despite ownership of such a significant portion of the US economy, nearly 60% of small businesses do not have a succession plan in place. And family-owned businesses in particular lack plans. According to the Family Business Institute, only 30% of family businesses progress to the second generation ownership, 12% to the third generation, and just 3% to the fourth generation, because no formal succession plans were put in place. So what are some of the strategies that small businesses can put in place in order to ensure that they prepare for the future? Succession planning involves creating a plan for someone to either own or run your business after you retire or you're incapacitated or if you pass away. In simple terms, succession planning is the process of passing control of your business to others. As I mentioned earlier when I spoke about Sarah Blakely, she's passing her business on to new owners of the business. So that is a process of succession as well. So today we will share 5 strategies that I believe can help small business owners in succession planning. The first strategy will just be to start right now, today. Succession planning should start on day 1 of your business. There is no reason to postpone this. It starts with writing down your vision for your business, your goals, your value system, what culture you hope to establish within your business. One of my favorite small business authors is Michael Gerber, and he tells us to document our processes in detail, such that if you are not there, even anyone really could just pick up where you left off and run the business. By writing down processes, you will be able to design the system that your business operates on. Building your business around systems helps you to hire for the job and not building the business around an individual, which is a temptation that we as small business owners tend to do. That way, if somebody leaves your organization, you are replacing them for a specific job. This is something we as business owners tend to do very late in our business growth journey and after a lot of pain. Sometimes keeping people in our businesses that have either outgrown their roles or the business has outgrown them. And many times, because the founder had not empowered her employees, nothing can happen in the business without their approval. This not only serves as a bottleneck to growth, but certainly a death nail to the business should anything befall the founder that would prevent her from being present, like illness, disability, or even death. The second point is work on your business, not in your business. This is a very common phrase, but what exactly does working on your business mean? Working in your business is anything that is a job, execution, yes, but also management of the execution. My husband likes to call it management by walking around. Working on your business, however, includes anything strategic, business strategy, marketing strategy, sales strategy, product development, research, and even your vision. Every minute that you spend on tasks that can be delegated is a minute that you are not planning, strategizing, and building the best possible business. Without spending time on the strategic side of your business, it will be difficult to establish systems. And we've already seen the importance of systems earlier. Early in the business journey, it is natural to play multiple roles. But the reality, if you are only task-driven, then you cannot plan for the future. And I think this is where now being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, that's where the fork in the road begins to happen. And as a leader, you will need to spend time researching in your area of expertise. You need to know what other players in your industry are doing. What are market leaders focusing on? How will it affect you now and in the future? If you are working in your business, you will not be able to focus on strategy as you will be fighting daily fires. In small businesses, and especially women-run businesses, we tend to want to micromanage every aspect of our business, often saying that we can never find the right staff, or people just do things, or we can't get people to do things your way. A common phrase which I hear all the time, especially with with women-owned businesses, is, I'm a perfectionist and I can't compromise. To avoid this, refer back to the first point. Put down clear systems. And this is work. I know taking time off your business to write things down can seem like a waste of time, but it is extremely important in the in succession planning. Put down clear systems because the reality is, to grow, you will need to designate tasks to others. And many times, done is really better than great. I read this quote in a Forbes magazine recently. You have to accept the reality that no one can run the business as you have. But once a business is established, your replacement doesn't need the same strengths you needed when you were starting off. What your replacement needs is to take your establishment or your company and move it forward for the following decades. This can even mean multiple people taking the reins of the business. Succession planning allows the business to address holes in your strengths and create a path in those holes. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you to, click on the next slide. I'm so sorry. But you can have a look at some of the traps of micromanagement that will be on the next slide, yeah? And you can tick the ones if you're guilty of. But I can tell you that delegation really, really frees you. And that's one of the reasons when people ask me, Patricia, how are you able to do multiple things? And I'm just the queen of delegation. That's the reality. I just, have the idea, make sure the team has embraced it as their own, and they run with it. So the next point in succession planning that I think is extremely important is agility. An agile environment allows organizations to respond to demand and pivot when needed. To do this, businesses must be able to build a stable foundation that becomes the anchor of the company while changes are happening. Agility is not about planning for the unknown. Rather, not only about planning for the unknown, it is also about planning for the predictable. The more a business plans for succession, the more agile it shall be, then making decisions during times of significant change, including the possibility of death or incapacitation of the founder. If there's anything this pandemic has shown us, is that resilience of a business depends on agility, being able to pivot quickly. I think we've all heard that word, pivot, resilience, throughout this pandemic. Being able to work simply is then extremely important. When everyone in your business clearly understands their roles, the expectation on the work that they have been hired to do, and the impact that that work has on the overall business, then execution of your business solutions will be efficient. You therefore need things to be absorbed and understood with speed. Therefore, keeping it simple will help. In fact, it's often said, if it doesn't fit on one page, scrap it. However, when you are small and scrappy, this can be a challenge. Often in our businesses, the roles overlap. And sometimes as founders, and I'm very, very guilty of this, we're 10 steps ahead of everyone. Plus, there's not enough time to explain every single decision that we're making. One must move with speed after all, or we'll be left behind. However, the ability to pivot successfully in a changing environment, as things often do in the business environment, is pegged on how quickly your team can understand what it is you're trying to do and embrace their new roles. So you may be wondering, how does this, agility work? How does it work? Agility really starts with productive meetings. Yep, those boring things called daily meetings or weekly meetings. As simple as that. This helps all stakeholders know what is going on. Especially now, I've noticed with my business, when I'm initially, because I'm really meeting averse, and I have to say this for the record, I'm actually an artist. So I love change, I love challenges and looking at solutions, etc. But I'm not really great at sharing with the team what's going on in my head.
Actually,
Regular scheduled meetings.
Marketing comes together, yeah, and great companies actually.
Thank you. Regular scheduled meetings also help the founders share information on their future plans and how the work the team is doing impacts on these plans. Therefore, these, as a founder, it's actually very good when you're giving multiple tasks to your team as a founder. You'll be able to identify potential leaders and employees that can take up multiple roles within the organization, and these tend to be the future business owners. As Michael Couch says, the competencies should be focused on what will drive success in the future, not what is needed in the past. And certainly when that's one of the big things around agility is if you've hired somebody for a specific role and now they have to change, what happens then? But as leaders, because we're in a continuously changing business environment, change is inevitable and it has to be part of our job description. I think we're on the third point, is being accountable. So to ensure your company's succession plan is effective, it is critical to build accountability into the processes. I read an interesting article that described accountability as building in public, which is really, I mean, that's for me was exactly what it is, saying that you're going to do something publicly and then now executing. And with the changing environment and the rate of failure, this can sometimes be a challenge as a leader, and we want to cushion basically any thoughts of failure because of how we've been we've been brought up. As the founder of the business, who are you accountable to? This is not a question to be answered lightly, as it is extremely important in succession planning. Are you accountable to your staff or to your team? Do you have a culture that is open and people are able to share openly and that nurtures new and fresh ideas? So we're not blaming our team every time something goes wrong. I think Simon Sinek says, look for learning experiences in everything that is happening within the team. And in that way, you're able to foster people to share their ideas and what's going on. And as a leader, this is extremely important. Do you have an advisory board? An advisory board should be made up of people whose opinions that you respect. For me, respect is the most important quality of an advisory board. Then possibly being an expert in their various field would come second. Ultimately, the weight that you give an advisory board is what gives it its power. How much you respect the members that you put on the board, their time and their opinions is really what will guide you in becoming accountable to them. And also, as they say when you're building openly and you're sharing their ideas, they will hold you accountable for what you said at the past meeting. What's happening? Why are you changing things, Patricia? I thought this is what we had said. This is why you were investing in X, Y, Z. And I think that's really, really important. I recall one of my advisory board members asking me many years ago, I would even say maybe I would tempted to say over 10 years ago, and I was presenting my numbers at the time. Willard was looking really healthy. The numbers were great. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to rule the world with this business. And one of them just asked me, this is really great. I mean, the numbers are great, but you should be forecasting. What you should be bringing to the board is what you're going to be doing in 3 to 5 years. And what is the impact of the technology and everything happening around you that's going to impact your bottom line? And those were such telling words, because sure enough, 5 years later, people were not printing. Everything was digital. The pressure was going towards online. And we just saw, honestly, our revenues literally plummet. So an advisory board is really good because it keeps your eyes and ears open. And they're also able to show you where there are areas for growth. I recall one of my mentors, when I was sharing the idea of Conference in a Box, because she doesn't live in Kenya, kept giving me examples of multiple countries where, event companies are not about event rentals, and it's about offering professional advice, strategy to organizations who want to bring in new products to the market. And that's how I positioned Conference in a Box, and is why we're still successful today. Accountability can be seen in the founder's use of the resources in an organization. Using company finances for personal use is one of the biggest challenges in small and micro businesses. Being accountable in the way we steward the organization's resources will determine how those who will in future entrust with this responsibility will do the same. So if you're frivolous, you can be rest assured that will become the culture within the organization, and the money that you've worked hard for will be spent. There is a need for checks and balances, even for us as entrepreneurs. I've seen it both in my husband, who's my business partner, and made sure that I always had 2 signatories on all my checkbooks at the beginning of the business. And so that by the time, even 10 years later now, when we're sole signatories, there was already a huge respect for the resources that we were handling. I even recall going once to an embassy with my business bank statements and telling them, look, I have money, so you give me the visa. And the lady said, Patricia, this is not your money. You're a custodian of these resources on behalf of your clients and your staff. And that's quite, it's quite telling when somebody tells you that. So being a good custodians of the resources that have been given to you is extremely important. Next, I think our last slide, which will be around mentorship and coaching. Mentorship and, last but certainly not least, being a mentor to your team leads a to your team leads is a great way of ensuring your vision as a leader is shared. Mentorship also helps in identifying successes in your business. I hadn't really thought of myself as a mentor to my team until, of course, as you're doing feedback, and through the years as we've grown, I've remained firm friends with even many of my staff who have left. And it's interesting when they talk of mentors and your name comes up, you don't realize how important a role that is. One of the things I've also really appreciated in this mentorship role, because many times as we're told to distance ourselves, from our staff, and I tell you, you do build that shield around you, because sometimes the best of your staff will leave you, but that's just how it is. Some will leave and some will stay, and the ones that stay with you, you want to keep them there as long as possible, so that you're able to delegate a lot of the work that you are doing initially. Others, you continuously retraining people coming in. So being a mentor to your team leads to a great way to ensuring that your vision as a leader is shared. Mentorship also helps in identifying successes in business. For small businesses, this could be a family member or a long-serving employee. For example, my GM has been with me for, I think, 14 years now. Many times, small businesses cannot afford the salaries that large organizations offer, or even a clear career path for ambitious employees. However, mentorship can compensate for some of these things, especially for individuals that are eager to learn from you as their leader and your expertise and your experience. At Kayana, we speak about having the spirit of abundance. When you are a mentor, you have to embrace this mindset. The more open you are with the lessons that you have learned in your own business journey and how you have retained your customers and the different seasons that the business has shaped and steered the direction of the business, the more you are equipping the future leadership of your business. For many, this is not easily done. If your mentee is a family member, of course, you will be generous with this information, but sometimes we hold back in sharing with external staff members. However, we have seen many family-owned businesses hire from within. So trusted, staff and people who have been with you for a long time. I remember even interviewing a very successful business owner in Kenya, and I asked him a question. I asked him, look at you, you are a Pan-African business. How are you able to hire the right team as a small business for you to be Pan-African? Because he said he had always dreamed of being a Pan-African business. And he told me, Patricia, you have to sell your vision to the people who you want to hire. So for example, if you go to the university and tell them you want the best BCom students to head your finance departments or etc. And you're competing with the big four guys. What you do is this particular individual sat down and took the same list that the Deloitte and etc. were taking. And all he did in the interviews was sell his vision as a company and where he wanted his company to go. And lo and behold, some of the best candidates actually came to work for him for a pittance, but are now the people who are running, the company's operations in Nigeria, in Ghana, in South Africa. So selling your vision is extremely important. But to sell your vision and to convince them to come, you have to first of all respect them and share with them everything about the plans that you have. You have to mentor them and you have to coach them as well along the journey. So long-serving employees can actually be the ones who open new outlets for your business moving forward and for growth. Actually, and this particular entrepreneur this year, or was it early? Yeah, this year actually sold his majority stake in his business as well. So certainly putting structures in place have paid out in terms of succession planning for him. In conclusion, as a business owner, it can be hard enough trying to keep the business running. Your customers are satisfied and your employees paid. Taking some of these steps to define a succession plan will help you give you a guidepost to making future decisions. This will then allow you to ultimately achieve a succession goal and give the business the opportunity to thrive in the future. I hope with this, I think we've been talking for about 15 minutes. I hope you feel somewhat equipped to start your journey to succession planning for your business. Always remember to keep it simple. Be authentic in your approach and believe that you are on the road to building a business for future generations, whether it is to pass on to your children or to sell it to someone else to run. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Patricia, for the good presentation. Sometimes we just need to be reminded. Of course, everyone wants their dream to go on and on. But if we do not plan and if we do not start now, then we are bound to get into a crisis when something unknown happens. And thank you very much for highlighting those strategies. We've said that if you start now, work on your business, remain agile, be accountable, and finally make sure that you mentor and coach the people that you want to take up your dream and your vision. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the Q&A session. Any questions and concerns for Patricia regarding this very important topic? We said you could put them in the chat, then we can have Patricia answer. Someone is asking if we're going to share the slides. Yes, we will. We will share the recording after the meeting. There's a question for you, Patricia. How can we measure the success of succession planning?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And what I believe is, what happens? I'm imagining if you're not there for generations, for the next generation, to see the generation take on your business. So there's a statement that is very popular in the management world, which is start with the end in mind. And that's how you actually start the succession when you're planning for your success. What is the end goal at the end of the day? This vision, even if you're a startup and you've not reached those goals, ultimately, what is that goal at the end of the day? As I said before, when I spoke to this very successful Kenyan business owner, for him, it was to start a Pan-African business. So from the beginning, from his hiring process, that is what he did. From who he put in his staff, what systems he put in place within his company, he would continuously ask himself, is this what a large Pan-African business that is turning over $1 billion annually, is this what it looks like? And he was continuously asking himself those questions. And therefore, that will then guide the process. And yes, if you're going to run a $1 billion business, one of the questions you will ask is, should something happen to me today, can this business continue running, or is this going to die with me? So I think those are the steps you, as I said, you have to keep it authentic to yourself. What is the reason why you're starting this business? Ultimately, what is your end goal at the end of the day? And then put those goalposts in place. And that is one of the reasons why I quoted something as simple as having a meeting, because through the meeting, you're able to share your vision. And that is something that we don't do often enough as small business owners. So are you having regular scheduled meetings? That could be an easy way to start. And then from there, you build up. Have you got a board, for example? And this board, if when you're meeting as the board, are they holding you accountable? Because ultimately, it's you who's constituted the board and given them the things that you hope to achieve by them being on the board. So those are you will put your own goalposts, because the business is yours. The industry you're operating is one that you are familiar with. And starting with the end in mind, I think, is extremely important. I hope that helps.
That really helps, I'm sure. There's another question for you, Patricia. From your experience, a business that has high turnover of staff, how do you ensure good succession strategy? I'm sure you've captured most of it, but maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, I can talk about my own experience. Having designers, I don't know if there's any higher turnover than with designers in an organization. And when I asked, because some of my designers have been with me for 4 or 5 years. Actually, I always say the threshold with designers is really 5 years, because then they want to do other things, they want to explore. And then in our industry, there's a lot of changes when it comes to the software and learning. So you may want to go into a completely different direction, which at the time our business is not doing. So one of the things honestly, for me, the biggest part in staff retention has been coaching and mentorship. Sharing the ideas. I don't hold back on my ideas. I'm constantly telling them what we're doing. One of the things when we were building the business, I had somebody who I hired actually as a driver, who ended up becoming almost like a PA to me. But he then left my organization to go and work for a competitor. And when he came back, I rehired him back into the business. He had so many insights that we could immediately implement in our business, and with technology changing. So if you don't have those open chains of communication within the organization, people then feel stifled and feel like they tend to leave. So I've been extremely fortunate in my average time that I spend with that I've retained my designers is between 3 to 4 years, some even 6 years. And I attribute it 100% to mentorship and coaching.
All right. So Bunny is saying it's always a pleasure to listen to Pat. Great takeaways, not only for business owners, but also for those employed in leadership position. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Now, question to you, Patricia. How can a family business become more open to hiring outside professionals? I know this is big.
That is huge. Of course, some of you may know or may not know, but my the family that I'm married into is actually a family business. And so I know these are challenges that are extremely, what can I say? It's very difficult. And I think for me, what I have observed is that it revolves around trust. I do recall when I first hired in my contracting and events company, I actually worked with my younger sister. And it was really hard, her giving me, because she became an employee and she really used to hang out with my staff, and listening to her give me feedback on what the team is feeling or how I dealt with a certain situation can be extremely, extremely challenging. But some of the things that I've seen that have helped, both in my own business and in our family business, is that people being hired in the roles that they actually are. Their strengths are not necessarily where they have studied, but where they're very strong, where their strengths are. And I think that's very, very important, because when people are operating in a place where they don't feel like they can excel, or that they're being listened to or heard, then it becomes very challenging. In Circles Women in Business, we had an event where we invited women who are either second or third generation business owners to share. And this a particular lady who gave me a great story on how they created a family constitution, which is not a complicated document, but it's something that they all came about, and they went on a retreat, and they're in the hotel business, so it was easy. And then they just came up with what they envisioned their dream company looking like, and where they see themselves playing a role in the business in order to retain the talent, because they were a large family, very, very well trained, and some of them are working in very successful hotel businesses outside the country, and the family wanted to bring back that talent into the country. So that's what they did. And then within the constitution, they said, well, if you have an idea and you think it's a great idea, you'll pitch it to the family, but you have to have worked within the family for 2 years first, with a proper assessment and a growth path which they had designed. And once you have excelled there is when we will actually table your idea, and then be able to see if we will invest as a family into that idea and with the project in which you can lead. And this is a business that probably all of you know. I'm just not going to talk about it because I didn't ask her. And I felt that that's an amazing way in which you can retain family talent. And even within the family constitution, there were ways of dispute resolution as well. If there are issues being raised, there was a process. And because it was three generations in the same business, it's how whoever the patriarch or the matriarch was, who would be involved in the dispute resolution. So these things they don't happen by chance. That's the process. That's one of the things that really we have to take away. It is really planning. I guess that's why it's called succession planning. So you have to plan for all this possible things that can come up. What about members who are shareholders in the business and don't work in the business? Are they evenly compensated, for example, as those who work in the business? But these are things that have to be discussed. It's really good to discuss it first internally as a family, and then probably when you want to give it a structure is when you can call a professional to do it for you. I don't know if that helps answer that.
I hope that answers quite a bit. And connected to that, Patricia, there's a question asking, does succession planning work best with family member or an external member? I know you've touched slightly on that.
Yeah, of course, succession planning is is complex, let's put it like that. And family dynamics is even more complex, especially when you don't have like one clear family head. It's for families where maybe they're brothers who have come together, and there's so many examples we can see where things have happened. I remember listening to one supermarket chain that is, a family of brothers running it, and I think that it's on YouTube, and you can hear one of the brothers speak. And when his points, although they had succession planning, they had structures, they had a constitution, when it came to actually implementing the things that they had said, there was then a challenge in that process. And so he just opted to, to leave the business and do his own thing. And, the business kind of like hobbled on. But I think if you're going to get, it's almost like mediation. If you're going to get an external person to come and help you put the structures in place, it has to be somebody that all the members of the family definitely hold in high regard and respect. Ideally, it would be, in a perfect case scenario, really the founder should already put in systems in place such that in the event of dispute resolution, there's a document that they can refer to, and that can be used in guiding. And I think also what happens is independent people tend to then not get too emotionally attached to the decision making. You can find somebody is arguing, is upset about compensation simply because, for example, maybe they're not able to pay to move their child to a certain school and their income then can't afford that. So really, then what is the problem? Is it the problem the paying for the fees, or is it that the compensation is not enough? And many of these things can be separated with a mediator who will be able to talk about, okay, these are the key issues and these are the issues that are causing the friction, and let's resolve it. And then, of course, ultimately document those resolutions so that future generations can use them. So yeah, it depends. If you have a matriarch or a patriarch who you feel can mediate, that's the easiest process. Others, yes, there are external mediators who can help very much in this process. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. The other question for you, Patricia, is how can you be certain that someone is fit to take over your business? Like, what are the factors you would look for apart from academic qualifications? I know you spoke about that on mentorship and coaching. Can comment on that?
Yeah. First of all, there's only one thing we're sure of, or is it two? Taxes and death. So once we put that aside, everything else becomes a variable. What coaching and mentorship helps you do is investing in a leader. And yes, you can invest even in your family. You can say, my firstborn son is going to take over this business, and you invest so much in that person. And then they just say, no, I'm actually not interested. I want to go and become, to do something else. I want to be a preacher. I want to tour the world. This is not what I want to do. So those possibilities are very much available. I like the story of, is it Billy Graham and ministries? And I think his elder son always was looked like the person who was going to take over the business. But one of his younger sons had gone into the world and had experienced different things and had a lot more, had left, basically had worked outside the ministry. And he felt that was a better leader to take the ministry forward. So it's different. There's no surety. Even I think even in the person who is being called the designated leader, how sure is he that or she that she will want to continue doing this like you have done for the 30 or 40 years of your business? The reality is we're not sure. But as I've said, we go back to putting systems in place. And as systems help you hire for the role. And that's the one thing that you can at least be sure of, is the qualifications that you need to fill that role. So while you maybe are working in the business as the CEO or the COO, etc., maybe the person who's going to take over the business and take it to the next level will be a chairman of the board kind of thing, and will hire non-family members or from outside the business to take it to the next level. And this is the reality we have to think about. Whenever I'm talking to VC funders and PE funders, and especially for women-owned businesses, this is a real challenge, because many women, when they're running their businesses, never imagine that they will not be doing it. And even the thought of giving, just equity for money is a real challenge, because we're just like, no, this is my baby, my third, fourth child, etc. But you're not going to grow a business with that kind of an attitude. Whenever you start a business, always bear in mind and always let it be one of your goals that it can be sold. Because if it won't be sold by you, it is more and very likely going to be sold by your children.
Okay, okay. It is clear that in Kenya we have, we have a low matrix on succession planning. So how can we improve on these matrix for businesses in Kenya? Cosmos is asking.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure there are people who are probably experts in this, and I think it's got a lot to do also with our culture and the way we share and pass on information, even in our own families. Some of us were brought up in places where we were just told, do this, do that. We didn't even think that we had options and choices. But we're seeing the children that we're raising now are challenging these norms, and are now asking and questioning. So why should I do this? You have children saying that. The other day I was we're talking as a family, and one of my nephews was saying that he doesn't see himself going to university, and we're looking at him like, really? Yeah, yeah. If I do well in soccer, then I'll just go the path of of great soccer stars. So culturally, as Kenyans, we are embracing a new way of communicating, even within our family structure, and this is no different within organizations as well. So I think once we begin to absorb and accept dissenting views, and even the possibility that the younger people, yes, the millennials and the Gen Zs, could have bigger, better ideas in that direction our businesses can go, then we're going to be able to listen and to absorb differing opinions better. And I think this is extremely essential in seeing businesses transcend generations. So one of the biggest things for me to answer that question is really, what channels of communications that have you put in place within your business in order for the changes to be spotted early, opportunities to be spotted early, and if you need to pivot and move, it's with ease, rather than trying to move a dinosaur. That you're agile and you can move extremely quickly. And I think communication is really, really what it boils down to. Once the communication is given, how it's received and how those ideas are implemented. Maybe having an innovation center, or an innovation opportunities to innovate within the business, I think is extremely important.
Okay, all right. So how do you move on from a point of micromanaging with focus on succession planning? I also found that interesting.
Yeah.
You can comment.
Yeah. So micromanagement, yes, and being a perfectionist. Somebody told us it's great to be perfect. I don't know. It's something that I maybe probably fear for failure, because definitely our education system makes failure look like the worst thing that can ever happen. While in entrepreneurship, failure is actually a learning moment. So we need to fail quickly, fail early, and reiterate. So you have to encourage failure. And I hope if you're encouraging failure, then hopefully this perfectionist, I don't know. I just don't understand. As an artist, we continuously create. Sometimes when you're creating, you have to destroy what you're creating to make something acceptable, or something that you're happy with. So I think we're nurtured, and it's in our system to destroy. You can find a painter has painted and it's almost over. They just paint over it completely because it doesn't depict what it is they're trying to say. And I think that for me, that's something that needs to be embraced. So failure is a big, big part. Documenting your processes, and this is extremely important. I can't say it enough. Documenting every single thing that you do to consistently deliver a consistent product to your customer. Hotels do it really well. How come every time you go and stay in a room, the notepad is in a certain position, the what is it called, the remote controls. In fact, even if you put it on the opposite side of the bed, you find when they've cleaned the room, they return it. That is a system that is being followed. And in every single organization, you need to create that system. And for the start of that system comes with taking time to document each and every one of your processes within the company. Michael Gerber, who is the guru of small business, I quote him a lot, talks about even creating positions that don't exist when you are starting your business, in order for you to know when somebody comes to join, you're looking at them and seeing if they're a good fit for the position, and not necessarily creating a position around them. So you find somebody has come in, like for me in my business, let's say you say, oh, somebody's really good in 3D animation. But if 3D animation was never a part of the process of your studio, you're not going to then invest in that equipment just for this individual. So you have to understand your vision very, very clearly, create the roles within the organization, whether you're at that place or not, that need to be filled, and then hire to fit those positions. Also, in small businesses, we hire on attitude. So many times, the last thing we'll look at is the qualifications of the individual. But you look at if they're teachable, if they're trainable, and if they listen, which is extremely important, and if you can rely on them. So once you have ticked those, is when now we go to the technical skills in the organization. But certainly, write down all your processes so that even if you are not there, somebody will pick it up and move with it. This is how so and so would do it. And they don't want to do it exactly like you, but they will execute it and you will show them. And in the case, you can even put photographs on how finished products should look like, put it in a manual for everybody to see.
Okay. I think that also answers the question of how do you ensure succession planning doesn't lead to compromise of the company secrets? I think that goes to you mentoring and just taking through the people as Patricia, or the person who's you're planning, or the one who's succeeding you, just to take them through and documenting what you want to be taken over, as Patricia is explaining. Yeah. Patricia, someone is saying we're planning to sell part of the share of the company, William and Sons Supplies Limited. What do we do to get an investor to invest in our company?
And
that's a question for another day, but you could try and
interesting, yeah. But I think
I'm
sorry, I'm going to repeat. I don't know if people want me to say something different, but this is just it. If you want to sell your company, you have to have systems in place. If you want measurable systems, you can get global certifications like ISO, etc., that will guide you through creating these systems within your business. It's a very painful process because sometimes when a business has grown organically, it's a mishmash of things. Even if it's very profitable, it's completely helter-skelter. You'll find somebody in the organization has almost 50% or 60% of the information to make the business successful. So the good thing about getting these global certifications, management certifications within your business, is it helps you put structures in place within the organization in a way that an external person can look at and understand. So sometimes internally we're doing our own things, but we are the only ones who understand what we're doing. But when an external person is coming to look at it and it's all a mishmash, they almost begin to fear, okay, it's great, but it's I don't want to run that. I have too much work to do and to put these processes in place. So they will just look at it and leave it behind. But as you get these systems in place and you build around this systems, like I remember 10 years ago we got ISO certification in Willard, for example, and I couldn't believe how that process helped us so much to understand each and every task so clearly, to the point where areas in which there was a lot of friction amongst the team members, they could see why there was friction because it was overlapping roles, etc. So and then now if this member of staff left, it was so easy to hire and fill those spaces in because we were so clear on what the role is that they did. So I would say for William and Sons, do you have your processes documented clearly, so such that an external person, if they were to take your books or spend a week in your business, they would feel comfortable knowing that what the business is and how it's running. And then from there, now, of course, there's a lot of other things that you need to do internally in your business, which financial consultants can help you with. But ultimately, that's what it is. You identify what's your business, know your numbers, of course, which is a given, but in the background, you need to have very, very clear, transparent systems on how the business runs internally.
Okay. Patricia, I don't know if this is yours, but Collins is asking, what is the future for financial institutions now that we have new directive from the president and reprieve for loan defaulters, basing on the topic of succession planning for MSMEs?
That's really interesting. I think maybe, Susan, I can throw that back to you. Tell us, with the new directive, what happens to us? Or Nuru, if Nuru's on the call.
Nuru is on the call. Nuru, maybe you can take that.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Collins is asking, what is the future for the financial institutions now that we have new directive from the president on reprieve for loan defaulters, basing on the topic on succession planning for MSMEs.
Yeah, thanks. I was trying to understand the correlation, but really, I think what the government is trying to do is support those micro and small businesses that have a credit exposure of 5 million shillings or less, and that have been impacted by COVID. Over the past year and a half, the banking industry has really tried to work with clients to restructure their debt obligations. And this has been enabled by, I would say, a regulatory framework that the central bank has given us to lower some of the capital requirements. So that gives banks a little bit more flexibility. So I think this is just another piece of intervention that says we know and recognize that the operating environment is still very difficult, and a lot of the environmental conditions and market conditions are beyond your individual institution's capacity to manage. So I think we always welcome, as a banking industry, we always welcome government intervention that looks to support both businesses and also ensure that the banks are not running at a loss. I think a lot of times we forget that banks are lending other people's money. Just like you have your own business, banking is a business. They collect deposits and they basically sell deposits in the form of a loan. So you can imagine if you're running a kiosk, for example, and you're selling your Omo, or you're selling your Big G sweets, and people come take those Big G sweets and says, I'll pay you tomorrow, and the person just never comes back. So it's the same situation with banks. When they lend money, and people don't come back to give that money back, they owe their suppliers, who are the depositors.
Okay, Sarah.
So the whole purpose of the credit reference framework is to help.
I'll call you.
The whole process. Sorry, I think, Roslyn, can you mute that person, please? The whole purpose of the credit reference framework is to help lenders, not just banks, but all financiers, know which are those good borrowers, the people who will pay back, who will come back and pay back that Big G and that Omo, and who are the ones that might take a bit longer. And the ones that take a bit longer, then you know how to price that risk. So I think as Kenyans, we need to really embrace this whole point of credit reference bureaus. And we need to know our credit scores, and we need to use our credit scores as our collateral for loans. I personally, and I was thinking about Patricia's story of starting her business in her bedroom. When I started out, I had to pay for my way in university, and I didn't have any money for university, so I used a credit card to pay my way through. Just coincidentally, in the US, if you're a student and you're working on campus, you can get a credit card. It's almost like a help framework, right? And over the years, I was able to pay my way through university because I kept paying back my debt. And over the years, I was able to negotiate down my interest rate because of my credit score. So really, we really want to embrace this idea of let your credit score be your collateral. Let's not look at credit scores as a hammer that banks are using to stop us from borrowing. Let's look at it as a tool that we can use to access capital in a quick and cheap way. So I think a lot of Kenyans were happy that this credit reference bureau policy came through, but I'll caution that it's not sustainable, because we want to be able to use those of us who are good borrowers, we want to use our credit collateral to be able to access money, and to access it faster and cheaper. So bringing it to succession planning, my friend, I'm not sure, Susan, how that comes into succession planning, but I think using your credit score and access to capital as part of succession planning, I'm not quite sure, Pat, if that's the right way to go. I think what you've talked about in the past hour is more about systems and processes and just having a vision around your business. So I'm not sure, Susan, how the whole credit mandate speaks to succession planning. So that's why I asked you to repeat the question.
Yeah, thank you, Nuru. I think you've tackled it very well. Yes, Patricia?
Yeah, I was going to say that we talked about being good custodians of our money. And I think that's right in line with what Nuru is saying. You have to be a good custodian of the opportunities and of the funds that have been availed to you. And to be honest, many businesses, actually, one of the reasons they don't pass to the next generation is really because of the amount of debt that they're holding. So you look at the business and you find that it's completely insolvent. So it's important for us to keep track of, even as we borrow, the government will not always be able to intervene because, as Nuru has said, these are private institutions. You have to be careful and be a good custodian of the funds that are available to you, and understand clearly the differences between good debt and bad debt. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nuru and Patricia. Edwin is saying, thank you, Patricia, for sharing the knowledge, especially on the element of accountability. And I think many are struggling with this, with that separation of business resources and personal resources. Another comment is just to say thank you, very great and informative insights. Thank you for the session. Cynthia, I think you've been answered by Roslyn. Thanks for the message, and you can write to KBA on the link or the email address given. For NCBA, you can reach us out. You can walk into any branch countrywide, and you'll be able to be assisted. It is now 11:05, team, and the participants. I would like to end the session there because we were to end at 11. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much, Patricia, for the insights. And I think our take is start now for succession. Start now. I know we didn't quite tackle on repercussions, but we all know what the repercussions are. Your dream will just shatter and your business might just end upon your exit. So start now. And I think that should be our take home. So thank you very much, KBA. I take this opportunity for hosting this webinar. Thank you for the support you're giving to MSMEs. They are still the anchor to our economy. And thank you very much, participants, for your questions and also for taking time to listen in. I hope that this message was really, really important and will help your business and in your succession planning. Thank you very much, and God bless.